There are plenty of videos about how patch 9.3.0 is one of the worst that we've had in a while. I don't want to make that kind of video. Instead, I want to talk about one of the good things that came with this patch, that being the customizable scratch mark colors. Now, there are only 10 colors currently in the game, which are on screen at the moment, and we're going to go over every single one of them, and which one I ultimately think is the best. So from left to right, we have the OG red, which is vivid red. We have a light blue, a light cyan, light orange, light yellow, pure pink, bright green, strong cyan, grayish yellow, which is their attempt at a white, but it's not quite white, and a very light violet. Now, this is not just me making up color names here. I went to a website with the hex codes for these colors, and this was how it described them, so I'm just gonna roll with it. And it's only fair because the three blues are near indistinguishable in game, at least for me. You can tell there's slight differences, but not a lot. I don't know why they picked these colors specifically. So now I want to go through and see what they all look like on various maps. We'll start with Shelter Woods as a base. Now, of course, the standard red is something that we've been seeing for years, and I don't think it's a bad option, especially on a more color neutral map like Shelter Woods. There is kind of a mix of colors on this map, like the different colored lights you see in the background in the workshop area, but overall, the OG scratch marks still show up pretty well. Next up, we have the light blue, which is definitely a brighter color compared to the red. It's a little bit lighter of a shade, of course, so it's going to be a little more noticeable on darker colors. They tend to grab my eye a little more than the red does, naturally, because it's a brighter color. Next up is the light cyan, and honestly, there's not too much of a difference between this and the light blue that we just covered. It's definitely ever so slightly different. If you look real close and compare them side by side, you can tell there's a difference. But ultimately, it's almost the same. It's almost like they took the light blue and made it a bit more vibrant. Next up, we have our light orange, and I was honestly kind of shocked by these. They show up really well, even compared to the red, but I think they even have an advantage over the red due to being a lighter shade, meaning these could show up even potentially better than the red does on dark maps. However, they might be a little bit harder to spot on some of the brighter maps. Next up, we have our yellow shade, and I'm a little more concerned about these on some of the brighter maps, even compared to the orange, because it's definitely an even lighter shade that I think might blend into maps like Coldwind or Erie, but again, for the dark maps, they show up extremely well. Next up, we have the pink, and these are actually pretty good as well. They're bright enough to show up on dark maps, but they're not too bright that you can't see them on bright maps. Obviously, they're pretty close by nature to the red scratch marks, but that extra bit of vibrancy definitely makes them slightly easier to spot. Next up is going to be the bright green, and thankfully these are not like a forest green. They're not too dark. They do have some vibrancy to them. However, we'll get to it eventually, but I do think these could be a potential problem color for one realm, especially after the update this patch introduced, but ultimately they're all right. Next up is our third and final blue, which is the strong cyan. Again, not a ton of difference between the blues. This is probably the one that you can spot the most difference in, as these turn almost white when the scratch marks are at their quote-unquote hottest. Makes them a pretty solid option. And speaking of almost white scratch marks, the grayish yellow that we have is the closest that you can get to white currently in the game. They're not quite white. You can tell they're slightly off-white just looking at them. They're still really bright for darker maps, but I would be concerned about using them on a realm like Ormond. And finally, the ones I've been personally using, the very light violet. These are very well color balanced in terms of the brightness and contrast that they have. They're not only dark enough to show up on bright maps, but they're bright enough to show up on dark maps. It's just a really good shade for being noticeable on just about any lighting situation. So now that we've gone over all the colors on a base map, I would like to go over some of the more extreme realms to show what colors show up the best and which ones are the worst. We're going to start with what I alluded to earlier, being the new Azerov's lighting. Now, since we have a few examples to get through for maps, I'm not going to spend all day on each one. I'm just going to very briefly go over these and show why I think some of these might be a problem. Specifically, the green on this map. There are scratch marks dead on the floor in front of me, and they're almost impossible to spot. Fortunately, it is still slightly vibrant enough to be able to pick out, but don't use these on this map. The purple on this map, however, gives it an extremely nice contrast, and you can see scratch marks even in the grass a little easier. Granted, you can probably see them with other colors as well, like the blues, but overall the purple can be easier to spot due to it being a slightly darker color, so again, it shows up on brighter maps easier, while still being vibrant enough to see on dark maps. Next up, I want to talk about the Forsaken Boneyard realm, aka the Eyrie of Crows and Dead Sands realm. You can see here with the default red, it's still kind of hard to spot, especially at a distance. Yet again, the brighter colors like the blue and even the green show up relatively well on this map. But all the bright colors kinda can be a bit of strain on the eye, so I would recommend a darker color like the pink, or you guessed it, the purple. I'm kinda spoiling my take for the end of this video already, but so be it. The examples speak for themselves. Next up, grab your jackets because we're heading to Ormond. Now, of course, the default reds still show up relatively well as a base, but good luck playing with the lighter colors on this map like any of the blues, or God forbid you try whites. As you would expect, they are nearly invisible on this map, so good luck trying that. Maybe do it as a challenge video at some point. Now, the next realm kind of caught me off guard, that being Coldwind. I was expecting a bit of a different outcome for this one, but I was kind of surprised that the yellow shows up better than orange on this map. I thought it was going to be the other way around. Basically, every other color on this map is fine, though. The last map I want to briefly touch on is Toba, because the red can be kind of hard to spot on this map, so definitely go with a different shade that's not a red. I wouldn't even recommend the pink, honestly, because it still kind of blends a little bit. It might be hard to spot for some people. And at this point, you can probably all say it with me. I would recommend the purple because it still sticks out the best in my opinion. It's still dark enough that you can see it among the bright colors on this map, but also just bright enough for it to catch your eye. It really is a game of contrast. So is that it? Should you just use the purple scratch marks and nothing else because I said it was the best one? No, at the end of the day, you use the one that's most visible for you. But in my personal opinion, I do think the purple is the right balance of contrast and brightness to show up on basically every map. But ultimately, this was added for accessibility, not for style, which mainly I'm using it for style because I never really had an issue picking up the red. I don't have any sort of color blindness, so obviously I cannot speak for people who do. If anything, I'm speaking for the general player base and giving my opinion on which one is overall the best for people who don't have problems seeing the shade. Because again, as I've already said, the violet in this game has just the right amount of brightness and contrast to show up on basically every map. It's not too bright that you won't see it on maps like Eyrie or Ormond, and it's not too dark that you won't see it on maps like Nostromo. Now, these 10 colors are definitely a good start for having the accessibility issues solved, but we should have some more, and we should have more options than just scratch marks. Let us change the color of different auras like Jen's. Let us change the color of the red stain. And this technically doesn't count as an aura, but please get rid of the Jen and Hook bubbles already, because I'm so tired of missing auras from like barbecue or literally anything, like even Bitter Murmur. You can miss auras because of those bubbles. Get rid of them. We don't need them. Even the ones for exit gates, there can be someone on an exit gate right in front of you and you won't see them until the bubble goes away. It's dumb. Get rid of them. Anyway, minor rants aside, that's not all I have to say on the scratch marks just yet, as I've seen a couple of things go around the community that I also want to touch on here because they are extremely relevant. Now, unfortunately, I cannot find who actually made this post originally, but I do have the graphic that was made. The idea was to let us pick our scratch mark color for every single map in the game, which I think would be great because that would mean, oh, I'm using the white scratch marks. I just loaded it on Ormond. Now I have to pause my game, switch them, and potentially give everyone else a head start. Granted, it's not a huge time loss. You're not going AFK for 5 minutes or anything. It's just a quick 30, not even 30 seconds, like 10-second change. But still, that would be a bit of time that you have to spend going into your options and changing it manually. Whereas if you could just set it for every map, you wouldn't have to worry about it. You could just load it and play. Or you can do what Reddit user ToadXD pointed out that you can find in your game settings. There is a line in your game settings file that lets you change the scratch marks color based on RGB values. You can enter whatever you feel like, and so long as you set that file to read only, that will never change, and you'll have a custom scratch mark color. And don't worry about this being bannable. This is something you can change in your own settings. You're not going to be yelled at by Easy Anti-Cheat or anything. But the fact that you can set RGB values confuses me, because that means we could have just had a color picker in the game and not just 10 colors, but I digress. By the way, I am using a custom color in this Deathslinger match you've been watching in the background the whole time. I set it to be my own lavender purple kind of shade. But that's all I have to say for this video and this topic currently. Do let me know down in the comment section below what you think of all this, what shade you like the best, if you're going to be using a custom color or not, and what other accessibility options or color changes we should be allowed to do throughout the game. But until next time, take care of yourselves.